Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series, the Unported playlist, where we now take a look at 21 of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today we're taking a look at Dead Connection, released in 1992 by Taito. I have a particular love for this game because for the last 10 years plus I've been living in Chicago, and it absolutely 100% takes inspiration from both Al Capone and the Chicago gangster scene as well as the movie The Untouchables. So it's just a really fun sort of game to play because I can see connections to the city I live in, but additionally it is just a really awesome, I want to call it an arena shooter game, but it's kind of hard to define what genre Dead Connection actually exists in. But this intro is absolutely great, and I love that it even was released by the company Taito Film. They definitely tried to put a little bit more pizzazz or jazz into the cutscenes, especially for 1992. As we get to the gameplay here, you're going to see that the screen doesn't scroll. Everything takes place in one static stage, but the backgrounds, the sprites, all the interactivity between you, the character, the enemies, and what's going on around you is really awesome, especially for 1992. It has a really nice feel to it. And what I love about the game is that the control scheme changes depending on what's going on. It's really easy to maneuver. You have 8-way direction ability with the arcade stick, but as enemies get closer to you, your shooting button becomes a melee button. You're actually able to pistol whip them or otherwise attack them when they get in close quarters. And you get plenty of additional weaponry, although the original starting pistol that you're given is an effective weapon. You can beat the game with it. You can definitely get through stages using it. So it's not like once you die you go back to the most basic weapon and you're basically stuck, kind of like a shmup game. You definitely, if you play well, can still get through the game with that intro weapon. But you get machine guns, you get shotguns, you get revolvers, a lot of different stronger weaponry that really diversifies the game a lot. And before you actually get to the boss character, you have to kill so many characters in the stage before that boss is going to appear. But 99% of them take one, if not two shots. So really clearing a stage isn't too hard. I do love that there's that hot dog right there that gives you the life up, just a little Chicago connection. You get that Chicago dog going on. Although the game never really states where it's taking place. In my mind it just seems like Chicago, so I run with it because it is kind of loosely inspired by The Untouchables. But it's definitely a great game, although I can see again why this one was probably not ported, although I wish it was. You know, it came out in 1992, and around then, the Super Nintendo really wasn't going to be able to handle this well. The Sega Genesis wasn't going to be able to handle it well. But when you get to the PlayStation 1 Saturn era, games like this weren't as popular. They wanted more 3D experiences, so it makes sense why this wouldn't have been brought over to a console, even though I wish it was. But now, today, it's still not really available on anything. You can emulate it or you can find an original PCB, and it's surprising to me that Taito hasn't decided that they do want to bring this game out. But now that we're on to the next stage here in this dining room, the cars shatter through the glass, everything's on fire, you get that nice visual flare. When you're playing this game well, it feels amazing. When you're on, when all your shots are hitting, you almost feel, no pun intended, untouchable, like the reference to the movie, and you just get this really nice sense of flow. And if you have a second player, it feels even better because you guys can take different parts of the screen. One person can play left, one person can play right or up, down. But it is still a great single-player experience. Although granted, it is a short game. It's not going to take you too long to beat this. So if you're an arcade collector, maybe the PCB would be worth it for you. But if you're just a casual player that wants to check it out, but you do collect some PCBs, I might recommend you emulate it before you take that commitment of paying the money for it. It's not the most expensive game in the world, but they're certainly not giving it away for free either. I do like these little weather effects that come down. Each stage just has so much going on. It's got verticality to it. You can go inside of buildings, you can navigate, and as you shoot things, the environment's manipulatable and things will be destroyed. So you really get a good sense of there's a lot of touches and visual flair put into this game. You know, the developers really wanted to make it stand out, and I think it does. And I particularly dislike the genre that it's set in, that gangster era. We don't get a ton of games like that in arcades, so I do appreciate the fact that they've done something a little bit different with it. And now onto this boss stage here. It's pretty easy to beat the bosses, but they do have those little desperation attacks in the back. But after each round clear, you get a little bit more of the story, and you're going to find out here that one of your partners has taken a bullet and he's died, and that's going to inform the rest of the storyline for the game. What I want to let you do is watch Stage 5 The Warehouse from start to finish, because the sound effects and the soundtrack are really great, but after that I'll come back and talk more about Dead Connection. And we have cleared the round. I do like the diversity in the stages as well. You get a lot of different set pieces. We've already seen city streets, we've seen back alleys, we've seen junkyards, we've seen whatever that industrial area was, and now we're at a garden party for one of the mafioso. So I do like the fact that each stage has its own diversity, and now we're in the daylight and people are dancing around. You're clearly invading somebody's party. So I do like the fact that they played around with those settings and really did the best they could to provide a cohesive story, because arcade stories, they're there. There's always some sort of plot, but most of the time they don't really matter and you don't pay much attention to them. Where in Dead Connection, the plot actually gives you enough motivation to understand what you're doing, and it kind of drives the story forward. So I appreciate the fact that they did try to add that in. And you just get those little power-ups there, those files, they're worth points. It's just a scoring mechanic, not really going to do much for you. The only thing you really want to focus on is getting better weapons and making sure you're getting those health up hot dogs, because those are definitely going to help you. But I would say the game feels quite fair. Your life bar is generous. You can definitely take a lot of hits before you're going to put another continue in. And that's the type of thing that I like in arcade games, where they feel challenging enough to kind of motivate you to play more, but they're not so brutal that you're going to have to dump $20, $30 in. And now between this stage, you get just a little bit more story that's going to motivate your character to go to the next stage, Central Park. And this is just a great game. I get why it wasn't ported. Unfortunately, it still hasn't been, because this would be a great, like, $5 release on, Xbox One or PlayStation 4 or Steam. I definitely still think there's an audience for games like this. But back in the day, I get it. It was released in '92. By the time that there was platforms that could have been able to handle it, it really wasn't the genre that people were gravitating towards, so it would have been a hard sell for people. But today, the fact that it's not on any platforms just seems weird to me, because Taito's pretty good about bringing a lot of their old arcade games back. But you can't get everything. But I really do love this game, and I think it should be ported. And if you enjoy any type of games like this, I highly recommend you check it out, because it's definitely worth your time. It feels kind of like Smash TV in a way, those arena fighters, but with that kind of like Chicago gangster flair to it. So if you're looking for a game like this, definitely, can't tell you where to find it, but it's pretty easy. You'll be able to download it, play it. You don't really need much system requirements whatsoever. I played it on an Xbox One controller and it functioned perfectly fine. But now we're moving on to the Opera House, the last stage in the game, and it tells you how many enemies you have to hit in each stage. And I would say I never once ran out of time when I was playing the game. It's generous enough to be able to get those enemies dead before you're going to run out of time. But I particularly like the Opera House because it probably has the most detail in the game. Because it is the last stage, they probably went all out on it. All of those doors there are destructible. The more they get shot, the more bullet holes go in until they explode. You can see in the top left-hand corner there's an enemy hiding behind that curtain. And as we come up and shoot at him, we're going to actually shoot through the curtain to destroy it, exposing a new part of the stage. So it definitely has a lot of flair and a lot of interactivity for a game that was released in 1992. I think Taito really cared about making this game something special and did everything they could to make it stand out, because you can see that curtain there has now been destroyed. But short of that, that is Dead Connection. I 100% recommend you check it out. It's a super fun game. And if you could do us a huge favor, go down below and hit that like and subscribe button. It takes us a lot of time and energy to make each one of these episodes, and we really appreciate each and every one of your guys' support. But like I said, it's an awesome game. You definitely want to play it. We'll be back on Tuesday and Friday with more episodes in our other series, and we'll be back on Sunday with an Unported arcade game. But enjoy just a little bit of the ending here. I'm spoiling it for you, but it's great. Short of that, thanks so much. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.